I'm Amy. Today I'm sharing 4 different recipes with you. I really like to share easy recipes that don't take a lot of time, but yet that are really tasty. So today I'm sharing 3 dinners and 1 dessert recipe. Now that it's getting to be kind of like springtime, I'm really excited to start cooking with the spring veggies and fruits and just different recipes. So let's go ahead and get started.
Tonight I want to show you a super simple dinner that I made a couple of weeks ago, and I saved half of the ingredients for some of the components for this meal tonight. I will leave the recipe in the description below. I made it up and I wrote all the ingredients down last week in case it was good. I'm just using some shredded cheddar. I diced up 4 chicken sausages. This is 2. I used 2 in the other recipe. And there's 4 heels here, and I froze 2 of them from our bread from last week. Some simple seasonings, and then eggs. It's going to be an egg bake with some bread. It's so tasty. I might add a splash of milk too. The first thing I want to do is go ahead and prep the eggs. So I'm just going to crack 7 eggs in this bowl. It's not super eggy, so if you want it more eggy, add more eggs. This is all of the eggs they put in last time because that's all I had. That's the only reason I chose 7, but it worked really well with just a couple of tablespoons of milk added to it. Before I whisk the eggs and get them all mixed together, I'm gonna add a half teaspoon of salt, some pepper. You can add as much as you'd like. And some garlic powder. This just really brings a nice flavor to this dish. And you could, of course, just use whatever your favorite spices are for eggs. I'm gonna go ahead and add in just a couple of tablespoons of milk and give it a good whisk. This is a great make-ahead dish because the bread soaks up the eggs really well. I actually don't have any time. Last time I put it in the fridge for a few hours before I baked it up, and that is really good. It's kind of like a bread pudding, like a French toast bake, like an egg casserole, which is with bread as the carb. And I'm gonna go ahead and add in that chicken sausage. I think if you don't have chicken sausage or don't wanna buy it, it would be good with bacon. It would be good with breakfast sausage. I'm also gonna add in the cheese at this point. I'm doing a cup of cheddar. You can use whatever cheese you'd like in this. And one great thing about this recipe is I had just frozen the chicken sausage that already diced up. I froze this cheddar and it was already measured just because I knew I wanted to make this recipe again. So it's a really good recipe to make ahead. It's a really good recipe to freeze ingredients because you get 4 chicken sausages in a package. And also it's a great way to use up your heels that you might not eat otherwise. Okay, we're gonna set this aside. I feel this would be a good recipe to use like stale bread for as well, but heels look really great. So I'm just basically gonna cut this bread into cubes. Okay, let's go ahead and butter our dish. I don't have any spray oil, so I'm just gonna use olive oil. Just get it all along the bottom and the sides. Oops, I didn't have to put quite that much oil in, but that's okay. So now I just want to put the bread layer on the bottom. I also don't mind if a few pieces are sticking out because they get a little bit kind of crispy and the rest stays really soft. But I'm just going to dump this on top. And I'm just going to get it all covered. That's everything. I'm going to add probably about another tablespoon of cheese on top just to make it look nice. And I didn't add this last time, but I have it this time. So I'm going to add some freeze-dried chives that I bought. They're just in this little container. But this is definitely not something you have to do. You could also add veggies in here, mushrooms, really add whatever you'd like. Now I'm gonna go ahead and bake this at 350 for 20 minutes. I just want the eggs to be set. And so when I kind of wiggle the pan around, nothing moves. There's not any runny egg. Here it is. I just took it out of the oven. It's perfectly done. Took 20 minutes. You'll be able to tell when I'm doing voiceover because I'm currently sick. Actually, the 3rd recipe I did in this video, I don't have a voice at all when I'm making this dinner. So I'm definitely doing voiceover and I'm still sick. But we love this recipe. Honestly, I'm writing it down. I'm saving it in my recipe binder and we'll definitely be making it again. It's great to prep ahead and bake up later or to bake up and eat the next day. So really tasty. I have a small head of cabbage. I'm going to cut half, use half for the coleslaw for these BBQ meatballs, and I'm going to boil the other half. We had boiled cabbage for St. Patrick's Day. My husband and both my toddlers really liked it, so I'm going to make that. I'm just going going to do a really simple coleslaw. So a couple tablespoons of sugar, a couple tablespoons of mayo or Miracle Whip or whatever, something like that, creamy, some salt. I have apple cider vinegar, but you could use any kind of vinegar. I'm just gonna shake it up. You can even use lime juice just for a little acid. I'm gonna try to add about a tablespoon. Some pepper. I'm gonna mix it up, and I might need to add a little bit more of everything, but we'll see. It's just gonna be a nice complement to the barbecue meatballs. To make this meal super easy, I'm gonna be using frozen meatballs and just cooking them in the oven. You could definitely make homemade meatballs. That would be so tasty here, but this is just a really, really quick meal. I'm doing a lot of meatballs because I want leftovers for lunch for tomorrow. And instead of doing pita, we're just going to put the barbecue meatballs on rice with the coleslaw on top as well. If I remember to, I will show you how I'm doing lunch tomorrow as well. It's really nice to cook once and have two meals. I just have microwave white rice that'll cook up super quickly for lunch tomorrow.
This is me in the future. I forgot to take a video of that lunch, but we had it with rice the next day, and this day we had it on a pita. They were both really good.
Here they are out of the oven.
I decided to bake the meatballs first, then take them out and add the barbecue sauce. We really like Stubbs barbecue sauce, but I decided to do this because if you make homemade meatballs, which by the way would be really good with this recipe, I just wanted to go really quick and easy, but I think it would be better to make homemade meatballs than to use like store-bought frozen meatballs. They're pretty good, but you know, you could definitely just add barbecue sauce, put it back in the oven, but this is just such an easy way to do it. So I just took a pita, a store-bought pita, put it down, added a few meatballs, and then added in that coleslaw, and you can see the coleslaw got nice and saucy, and it was really good for just like a few ingredients with this coleslaw. So really good, and the coleslaw and the barbecue meatballs went really well together. Even with just a few kind of basic ingredients, it was really tasty. And I will say it's really great for family if you want to serve it like a different way with your toddlers, you know, no barbecue sauce or coleslaw and pita on the side or anything like that. Definitely a go-to quick meal. I'm excited to share this crockpot recipe with you. It's only a handful of ingredients. It's so easy. It takes like 10 minutes to put together, but I think it's pretty unique. I've never really seen a recipe like it, so I'm gonna go ahead and share that. This recipe I'm making is called white pizza pierogies. So I'm using two different kinds of pierogi, Alfredo, Italian seasoning, and it's going to be all layered in a crock pot. And I'm also using Parmesan and mozzarella cheese. So I'm just mixing both of those together. I'm using about 1.5 cups of cheese. You could use more or less if you'd like. You could also use like red chili peppers, if you'd like to make it a bit spicier, but we have young kids, so I didn't want to add any heat to it. So I just want everything to be in an even layer. So I'm doing an even layer of the pierogies first, and then I add the Alfredo on top. So initially I started doing it with a spoon, but that was just going to be way too slow, just take way too much time. So I just ended up just pouring it out of the jar. And I really like this Rouse Alfredo. Then I put some Italian seasoning on top. You'd also add the red pepper flakes if you'd like to now as well. Then I'm adding on the cheese layer. So I did this 3 different times, so each of my layers looked the same. For the final layer, I actually decided to add the Alfredo on top of the cheese because I was worried, since I was cooking it for a couple hours in the crock pot, that the cheese would just burn and get hard on the top. So I wanted to cover it with the Alfredo, and it worked really well. So I covered it. I cooked it on high for an hour, and then I cooked it on low for the second hour, just because I used frozen pierogies. If you use thawed pierogies, it would cook really quick. The recipe says like 45 minutes to an hour, I believe. So you saw me turn it down to low. This is an hour later. I'm just turning it to keep warm because it's dinner time. So first I'm going to take out my toddler's dinners just because I want theirs to cool a little bit. I'm also adding some freeze-dried chives on top. I love these if you've never seen them before, but they just add a little bit of color. So I got a really nice cheese pull here, and I'm only just doing a couple for each of my kids. So I wasn't sure if they were going to really like it. It's pretty different than something I would normally make or something that I've made before. We enjoyed it. It was 5 ingredients total, including the 2 types of cheese and the Italian seasoning. And it took like 10 minutes to throw together. So super quick and easy dinner idea here.
I have a really simple recipe for peanut butter cups. It's just like peanut butter and chocolate. I'm not sure if I've shown that here before, but today I thought I would make a peanut butter cup that's more similar to a Reese's. I found it on Instagram. It's powdered sugar, peanut butter, maple syrup, and then of course there are some chocolate chips that I'm gonna melt. So I thought I would just really quickly take you along as I make this. So first I'm just gonna mix it up. So I'm just gonna dump this dough onto a parchment paper. I'm gonna form kind of like a ball, and then I'm gonna put another piece of parchment paper on top to kind of flatten it out to the right consistency that I want. This texture of the peanut butter reminds me kind of like a Buckeye. My husband's mom makes some really good Buckeyes for Christmas, if you've ever had that. I'm not sure how similar the recipe is. I haven't actually looked to see if it's really similar. Cover it with another piece. And then I'm just gonna use my hands and flatten it to the thickness that I want the peanut butter, the inside of the chocolate to be. Could probably use a rolling pin for this. Maybe I will actually. Just roll it a little bit. The recipe creator used the shape of eggs, so she just cut it with a knife. She's also done heart-shaped ones. I'm just gonna use this shot glass that we have in our pantry and just use it to cut out little circles. I wish they were a little smaller, but this is what I've got. There's the thickness.
Next, I just took the leftovers and I just kind of put it all back together in a ball, flattened it out again, just like kind of how you'd make biscuits or like sugar cookies or something like that you're shaping. But I did this a couple more times.
Now I'm going to take this and I'm actually going to refrigerate it for a little while just because my freezer is really full. But the recipe says to freeze it.
I forgot to film the next step, so I am transferring it to get it chilled. I'll talk about it. So basically, once it chilled for an hour or two, I went ahead and dipped it in some melted chocolate. I just melted chocolate chips in the microwave.
Here they are, not super pretty. The chocolate kind of hardened before I could put it all on here. Just had some things to do with my kids, but it looks prettier probably if you flip it over. But anyway, here it is. Here's what it looks like.
We all really liked this. It was much richer than the recipe I normally make with just peanut butter and chocolate. I'll have to share that one as well sometime, but I liked it. It was definitely more work than that, but the texture was much closer to a Reese's. It also was more rich, so like less peanut buttery, but more sweet in terms of like taste and flavor. I'd make it again. I'll link it in the description below. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and go ahead and subscribe if you're new. I do appreciate that. And let me know in the comments what you're looking forward to with spring, or some of your favorite spring recipes, anything like that. I'd love to hear from you. And I'll be back next week. See you then. Bye.